Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of the eLearning show with Origin Learning. Like you might have already know, we'll be bringing one of the practitioners every fortnight from instructional design to operations, graphic design to technology to share practical tips, hacks on learning technology, content, and solution. So if you're responsible for training for your customers, partners, and employees, then you should follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube. You'll be able to find the link in the description. Today, I have Lisho with us. He's the AVP of Operations with Origin. He has about 20 years of experience in designing and delivering learning technology solutions. He has been leading operation team at Origin for the last 10 years and responsible for all our client engagements, from innovative startups to Fortune 500. Under his leadership, Origin has grown from a startup to over 300 employees with end-to-end content services capability, winning 16 plus awards, both domestic and international, including several Brandon Hall, CLO, among others. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Lisho.
Hi everyone. Hi Sachin.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks again for taking time to join this.
Thanks Sachin. Thanks for inviting.
Sure. So let me start with what's going around us and how you and your team is adapting to this new norm.
Sure. See, after the outbreak of this COVID-19 pandemic, so you can see a lot of changes in the way we live and work everywhere, right? So if you take the office environment, till a few months back, the majority of the team was working from office. So with a small percentage of employees, I say 5% is working from home, because that's what normally happens in India. So most of the employees, we go to office and work. So our infrastructure, work policies and processes were structured around the concept of working from office. Then things changed, and now the entire team is working from home or in a remote mode. So by seeing the impact COVID-19 was creating across the globe, so we had anticipated the need to move the team to a remote mode. So we had started planning for the same actually a few weeks well before the lockdown. And we did this move in batches. And we started with one batch, a set of employees we moved to work from home, and then the next set like that. And the last batch was shifted to the remote mode actually 1 week before the lockdown. And that was a sudden shift of the work mode, right? And that had a lot of challenges, obviously, in terms of infrastructure updates, policy changes, need of new tools, software, and so on, because we were primarily working from office. So after moving each batch to the remote mode, so we assessed the situation and what enhancements required in various areas. And then we made those necessary changes, whether it is infrastructure or policy. And by the time we moved the last batch, we had the adequate infrastructure and good amount of policies in place to enable a stable 100% remote mode. And from the time we moved to this new mode, that is a remote mode. So what we do, we ensure to connect to each other, employees at regular intervals. So both at project level and individual levels. So daily team huddles, team activities, training sessions at regular intervals, and even that one-to-one interactions, right? So that all ensure that we all are connected and work as a team. Collaborations tool became an integral part of the day-to-day work culture. So now by this time the entire team is connected from home. We ensure they are connected using a secure way and by adhering to all the data security measures. So one thing I would like to say that we have maintained the same quality standards and have met all delivery due dates during and after the transition. So it was a sudden change, but I think we were able to adapt to the new scenario quickly. So one way we can say, before this pandemic, if somebody wanted to work from home, then it was like, you need to go ask for approval and then work from home. Now it's changed like that. Okay, if somebody wants to go to office for something, So you need to request and take approval. So that's the way things
Sure.
change.
Sure. I mean, from our perspective, from India perspective, there's a lot of change in the way we work and the way we are adapting to this situation. Uh, but what are you hearing from your customers? How are they adapting to this new norm?
Yeah, so the most of our customers, as you know, they are from US, Bay Area, like that. So and when it comes to our customers, the challenges in terms of the shifting work environment, that was minimal. So they were already used to this remote mode of working or work from home scenario. So for them, the infrastructure, software, their hardware tools, and the overall work environment was already set up in such a way that they can work from anywhere. So that way it was not a big issue for them. But the main impact for the customers, that was in the training delivery, where the mainly affected modality, that was classroom training. And this impact varied from customer to customer. See, for some customers, they had training available, both in classroom and e-learning modes. And for them, it was just a matter of, okay, you continue with the e-learning mode. And certain customers, what they did, they switched from the classroom mode to a virtual classroom mode. And this also, customer to customer, I think they adopted different methods. Some of them just use the same ILT content but change the delivery mode. Use a conference facility and use the same ILT content, and you continue the training. And some others, they started doing a proper ILT to vILT conversion, and wherever possible, even to convert the current training into an e-learning mode, self-paced e-learning mode. So that also happens. But at the same time, we also have customers who suspended the training sessions temporarily, because in these cases, the existing training material is very much tuned for a classroom delivery. For example, something like in manufacturing industry, if you have a very advanced topic, this is where you need the machinery and all, where students come and take. So there will be no other option than to postpone that training. So that's what happens in the training industry, and due to the social distancing norms, ILT is definitely an area that got affected.
Sure. I think even research reports indicate the same, right? Several reports indicate that 38% to 70% of corporate training is still ILT. So are you seeing that is changing from or to vILT or e-learning?
Yeah, whether ILT or e-learning or vILT, which is the better modality, this is something there, as a for a long debate, right? So there's a debate for long time, subject for debate. So as you know, whether it is in classroom training or a virtual training or an e-learning, everything has its own pros and cons. So when we talk about ILT advantages, the one key advantage is the opportunity for a personal interaction with the instructor. So you won't get it in any other modality. Another advantage is the ability of an instructor to control the training delivery. So instructor can decide what content to cover based on the classroom, the audience, or that particular day, how the students, based on how they are reacting. So he can decide what to cover in the classroom. So these are the advantages for ILT. And another one is a chance to learn with hands-on experience in labs. That's a key reason for a lot of learners to prefer ILT. But now, if you compare with the same with the flexibility of learning, when I would like to learn, and anytime availability of the learning material, cost, the consistency of delivery, then e-learning and vILTs are better options compared to ILT. And also the advancement of technology. Nowadays, e-learning can offer much more in terms of learning experience compared to a few years back. See, technologies such as VR, virtual labs, so they make this virtual experience almost the same as that of the experience in physical environment. And if you compare and if you analyze the organizations, you can see the large organizations use a lot of e-learning modules and vILTs to train their workforce. But for small to medium-sized organization, ILT is the main mode of training. So this all, before the pandemic. Now, with all the social distancing scenario that has come into picture, so this forced organization to change how they train people and what are their training strategies. So there are constraints, right? And now you can't conduct physical classroom trainings. So as a result, what happens? Organizations need to switch to virtual ILTs or e-learning mode whenever possible. So how organizations reacted to this sudden and quick need? So most of them went for the quick conversions of ILTs to VILTs, so that you have the alternating training available quickly. But I think so. This is the immediate need. So once the basic alternate training is available, I think there will be more thought through efforts to revisit these conversions and make more efficient VILTs and DB. And the way things are going, so this new normal of social distancing and other impacts what COVID made to us, this is going to be there around for some time. So as far as it is there, then the alternatively adopted VLTs and e-learning are also going to continue. See, and people will realize, and the organizations will realize that the new modalities are working for them. Then they might just continue in that mode. So this will definitely increase the percentage share of VLTs and e-learning in the coming years. And I think, see, even in the absence of current crisis, the move towards vILT and e-learning from a traditional ILT mode, that would have happened anyway because of the cost benefits, the lesser logistical challenges, etc. See, this pandemic scenario could help to accelerate this increase in percentage.
But when let's say, to be a devil's advocate and then to talk about instructor-led training, right? You mentioned about how instructors have control in delivering and how instructor can get instant feedback from the participants or learners. So but you also spoke about how vILT can actually help in terms of standardization or catering to a global workforce. So, in your opinion, what are the important considerations for converting ILT to vILT?
Sure. So when we talk about the considerations, we need to look for multiple aspects. So when we convert an ILT to vILT. So so I will talk about a few. There will be a more, so the first of all, the ILT content, right? So that we cannot use as is in for a vILT. So it definitely needs modification to address a virtual and a global audience. Because like I said earlier, when we talked about the advantages of an ILT, so in ILT, instructor has complete control over the class and content. So instructor can make quick changes. You can tweak the content or presentation as they go along based on the participants. But in a vILT, instructor will not have any of these privileges. So when we design the content and when we design the presentation, so we need to think about the global virtual audience. So we need to consider the different age groups, nationalities, cultural background, and so on. While the what all the differences can be there in the in the audience, that we need to consider. And we need to redesign the content by considering all these aspects. That is the first thing, I believe. And the second important consideration is about the conference input. In an ILT, the presentation is a tool, and the instructor is the person who actually delivers the content. But when it comes to vILT, instructor definitely has some limitations. And there, so the presentation and how he is going to deliver, these two are going to be the two key tools for. And the tool that is going to be used for a vILT, it has a lot of importance, in terms of how effective your training can be. And there are plenty of tools available now. So some of them may be, very good for a conference call, but they will lack the collaboration and virtual meeting features. So for a vILT, if when you are planning a vILT, so we should use a conferencing tool that has the collaboration features, such as polls, surveys, charts, whiteboards, and so on. And the third consideration, that's about the instructional strategies. So like we said, we cannot use the content as is, and you will also need modifications in your overall instructional strategies. So when you are taking a class in front of your audience, uh, or you are taking it through a conferencing tool, so the strategies need to be different. And you need to adapt these strategies that will work for a virtual environment. And here is what again the importance of these tools come into picture. So you need to redesign the activities to optimize the use of these features, the collaboration features. Uh, so that will help to make your vILT much more efficient. And also when converting, there are different components for an ILT. One important thing is slide deck, and your focus should not be only on the slide deck. Like again in an ILT, the instructor can take the slide deck and the rest he can decide how to happen. So here you need to ensure all the ILT materials like instructor guides, student guides, FAQs, and any other supplementary materials, so that you are going to that are part of the ILT, that need to be redesigned and converted to suit a vILT. So I think these are some of the key considerations we need to make when we plan to convert an ILT to a vILT.
Yeah, so I think you bring in a very valid point that the content as is cannot be used and needs to be aligned to the vILT or e-learning requirements. Similarly, you also mentioned how ID strategies need to be mapped according to a vILT requirement. So, what are some of the best practices to convert ILT to vILT and maintain learners are engaged?
Sure. See, the biggest challenge would be how to engage the learners, or even to know how they are receiving the training. Yes, you can ask all the participants to switch on their videos and come on a video mode, but it will never help you the way your face-to-face interaction, right? So if the training doesn't engage the learners actively, then they are going to lose interest, and that will be much faster than in a classroom. So so one of the best practices we need to consider, that is how we can keep the training sessions short. So normally, in case of an ILT, so the ILT sessions are long, and an ILT program can be, even week or weeks long at a stretch, uh, with 6 to 8 hours of class every day. However, in such a scenario, due to the physical presence and the personal interaction with participants, an instructor can use strategies based on the situations and can keep learners motivated and engaged. So in case of a vILT, you miss the social element of personal interaction and also the social element of being together in a classroom. So therefore, long sessions can make the learner to lose interest quickly. So while designing the vILT, it is important to look for small sessions. Like when I say small sessions, maybe 40 to 50 minutes long, and allow a 5 to 10 minutes break after each session. So that is one of the best practices we can think of. And another one will be, so we need to re-look into the content. When we are converting, we don't need to convert everything as is, or we need to take everything and present in a vILT. So we don't need to cover everything, and we at the same time we need to cover the most important content that directly maps to the learning objectives. See, there will be other content, which will be of preliminary information or a knowledge level information that even we can give it as a supplementary material, or we can even give it as a pre-learning material. So this is another practice. And another best practice, and this is very important also, the activities. So we need to have a lot of activities because your learner is alone. They're not in a classroom. They're not in a group. So in order to keep them motivated and engaged, we need to use a lot of activities, and we need to use discussions during the vILT sessions. And we need to have these activities at regular intervals. And here comes, we earlier discussed, the conferencing tool can play an important role in your vILT effectiveness. So if the collaboration tools available with the conferencing tool, so you can use them for designing very good activities, and that will help to continuously engage learners. And another thing, so we may need to, through the instructor guides, when you give instructions to the instructors, so you can instruct them to post the training or the post the sessions after every 5 or 10 minutes, and ask the learners, okay, if they need any clarification or have any queries. Again, in a classroom, the instructor can find out who is understanding, who has doubts. But here, therefore, it is very important to ask them, okay, at regular intervals, if they have any questions. So I think that will be a good strategy.
Sure.
And question and answer sessions. We need to include question and answer sessions. So this will also encourage learners to ask questions. Another important strategy, again, from ILT to VLT, we need to be very careful, and that is about the presentation strategy. So when we create presentations, we need to create it with minimum text, and we should use good graphics. The visual engagement is very important for a virtual audience. So these are some of the best practices, Sachin, I can think immediately.
Sure. So you early on mentioned how the content sometimes as is used in vILT, and sometimes it's text heavy, and sometimes the course of the length of the course is little longer than 40 minutes or 1 hour. But in your experience, what are the common mistakes in ILT to vILT, and how can organizations avoid them?
So, yeah, I think when we are talking about the best practices or the considerations, we may have already talked about it, but I will summarize. And I think the most common misconception, here is that ILT to VLT conversions is all about take the ILT material and conducting it through an online meeting tool. So, so less cost, quick conversion. So that's what a lot of people think. But that's just a walk around. Ideally, ILT to VILT conversion is much more than that. See, when we do a vILT from an ILT material, that needs a proper redesign of presentation and instructional strategies. Then only it will, suit for your virtual classroom. And when we consider it's not only the slide decks, we are not going to take, and we should not just take the slide decks and teach. So we need to look for all the components like slide decks, instructor guides, FAQ, and any other material. We need to relook into that and redesign for appropriate virtual classroom strategy. And the other biggest mistake, and also sometimes that comes with the change management and cost associated, the conferencing facility or the virtual meeting tool. So most of the organizations, right, even if we all will have a conferencing tool which we use across the organization. So when there is a discussion and when there is a decision about vILT, sometimes the tendency will be, why don't we go ahead with what is available? Then there is no additional cost. And also to change the tool, so you will need to go through a change management process. So sometimes the organizations will decide, okay, we already have a tool, now we just need the content, then we can start doing the vILT. So this also can be a mistake because uh, like we discussed earlier, the conferencing tool and the collaboration features available with that has a lot of importance in the effectiveness of the vILT. So just going ahead with what we already have may not be a wise decision. Uh, you need to analyze what features are available there, and if your existing conferencing tool is not having adequate number of the virtual collaboration tools, then definitely we need to go for a facility, that has tools like your poll, survey, whiteboard, and those kind of different features. So you should look for one tool with all those collaboration tools. And the third one is the lack of learner engagement and interactive strategies. So yeah, so in ILT, that engagement and the interaction is done by the instructor. So if you just take and see the ILT content, sometimes you will not see those tactics, right? So sometimes it may be just an activity. How the activity is conducted based on the base information provided is with the instructor. So therefore, so in an vILT, so if you don't rethink and if you don't re-strategize, this can be an issue. So this can be introduced by interactive activities and discussions, question answer sessions. Even sometimes you can ask the participants, to take up a small portion of the class. So these are the things I think that comes to me as the common mistakes we do most of the time.
Sure. You kind of spoke about how we can include activities or collaboration features in vILT or e-learning in the form of whiteboard or Q&A or poll or some kind of activities and all that. But in the current environment where most of the time we are online and we are meeting, talking on Zoom, how can training organization avoid screen fatigue or Zoom fatigue, if you will?
Yeah, it's very true. Like I think the working from home culture, and especially in the last 4 months, has brought an overdose of video conference for office meetings, personal meetings, and even for training. Right, so everywhere we are using video calls. And earlier, what used to be a quick stand-up meeting or a discussion at a colleague's desk, now that also a video call. So this increased screen time and meeting time can really be an overload to this, the senses at times. So we need to consider this when we design a vILT, and we also need to keep in mind that the target learners, right, they may have already attended or they may have already had a lot of screen time on that particular day before they attend the training session. And some of the best practices we discussed earlier, and I think that will help us to reduce this Zoom fatigue or the screen fatigue. So one, definitely to keep these small sessions, 50 to 60 sessions. You must have heard about something like a 50-minute hour. So the 50-minute activity or a session then goes with a 10-minute break. So that will help you to refresh and come back for the next activity, next session, or go back to your work. And so this shorter sessions and breaks after each session, that will help. And another thing, in a normal ILT scenario, we plan a full day training or a 5-day training. So I think most of the time the reason will be the availability of the instructor, the continuous availability, because you can't have an instructor every day 1-2 hours for a month. And sometimes even people may need to travel to a location. So due to these logistical reasons, they take it as a continuous classes. But in vILT, you do not have that restriction. You do not have those constraints. So you can span it out across, a week, like every day, 1 hour or 2 hour of training. So if we are able to do that, that will also help. So every time when they come back, they can come back with a fresh energy. And definitely, we talked about the learner engagement factor, the engaging activities we can use. And even I have heard some people saying, say, like you have different modes, right? When in a Zoom or any conferencing tool, you have a speaker view and you have a tile view, you can see everybody. So I think if you use the speaker view, so you will focus only on the speaker, and that will be less distraction than seeing so many faces at the same time on the screen. So that also may help to reduce your screen fatigue.
Sure. Thank you so much, Lisho. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on this show. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, Sachin. Thank you so much.